welcome to our very first team building call. I'm excited to be here today with my amazing partner, Selena Galanis, and our official guest today, Sharon Gary Mason, but more and more will join over the weeks to come, I'm sure. So, Selena, thanks for putting this all together.
You betcha. Happy Monday, everybody. Happy to have everybody here.
Yes.
Thank you for inviting us.
Selena, do you have a graphic you'd like to share, or are we?
I kind of wanted to start a little informally today, and just because, I wanted to think about, and I know that we'll have more folks join as the weeks progress. There was something I did want to talk about a little bit, and maybe we'll share it as we kind of progress, Rick, which was the national study that Workman put out a couple of weeks ago, that study that they did. And I don't know if you've even had a chance to look at it, Rick, the one that was the unexpected impact of teams in real estate. Hang tight, I'm going to pull it up on my screen just so we have it to look at. Let's see. It was pretty interesting. Can you see my screen?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I can.
So really interesting study, and I'll just go through some of the very, very basics where they really broke it down. 1 second, I'm going to scroll down here.
Oh,
Okay.
I have this, yes.
Oh, I'll send it to you, Rick, so you can take a look at it. And it goes, as you get further into this, it's 22 pages long, but they just kind of go real high level here. 72% of real estate professionals on teams believe their team has been essential to their success. I thought that was pretty incredible. And by the way, this was a poll done across the nation, all brands, all walks up from single agents on teams, all platforms, so they were really trying to get a nice mix of folks all across the country, and trying to see what people were really feeling and thinking, which I thought was pretty amazing. So 72% believe that their team was essential to the success of their business. 77% said that they had a positive or a very positive experience working on their team. And we're not only going to talk about positives here, we are going to talk about things that they had concerns about as well. So don't fret. We'll talk about that too. 24% saying being on a team does not earn them greater income. So that was very interesting, right?
Right.
And they felt like this was a big discovery because it shows that the vast majority say that it does provide greater income, but there are 24% out there who believe that it doesn't, right?
Yeah.
And if you go into this, and they did go into this, in greater detail on the bigger side of things, they believe that the splits are creating, that are impacting their income, but we can go into that later. 80% say that they tend to be more productive and successful when they work on a real estate team. Right? We're working in a culture of productivity when we're working within a team.
Yeah.
62. Oh, go ahead, Rick. Sorry.
I'm gonna make sure my own team reads this.
I think it's pretty impactful.
Yeah.
62% of real estate professionals say they wish they had more specific specialty training within their teams. And Rick, we just talked about this after we got back from Dallas.
Yeah.
Right? What other kind of specific specialty training is available? Only 56% of real estate professionals say they have systems in place for business activities repeated 3 or more times. We're working on this right now. It's a big thing. 89% of real estate professionals believe major real estate companies or brands should support a team model. Big shift from 20 years ago, even 10, really.
Right, and it's still surprising. I talked to a friend of mine from, I talked to a friend of mine from Sotheby's the other day, and he does not truly believe that his franchise of Sotheby's that he works in is conducive to running a team. And that's nothing against Sotheby's, because I know other Sotheby's that are. But when you're in a franchise model, the problem is that you you're subject to the whims of the actual individual owner more than the rules and running of the corporation itself. So
interesting.
But in Realogy in general, teams are not, they mess up the system.
Okay.
And if you look at other major brands, they have specifically, obviously Keller Williams was the first one, but EXP has definitely really wrapped their arms around teams and said that's going to be a model that we really promote and support. So yeah.
Gotcha.
Interesting to know.
Okay, so let's see. 55% of real estate professionals believe being on a team has had the effect on their personal life that they had hoped for. And this is one that I feel very strongly about, right? The level of support that you get when you're part of the team.
Yeah.
You're able to go on vacation and have support. You have someone who helps you. So there's a lot of different things in here that talk about the barriers to establishing a strong real estate team, poor
Wow.
communication, poorly defined roles. And these are the things that we work on. And I thought this was really powerful. And we can talk about that as we progress through this call, as we're going through these calls, right? About what to do when we're building teams and things like that. So, okay. So I kind of wanted to start with that because I thought it was really great. And Rick, I think we should definitely share this with everyone who joins the call going forward.
Yeah.
And send that out. I think it's a great opportunity to give them feedback about what people tend to say they're looking for when they're joining a team, and also what they're not looking for, and what the hiccups that usually happen about
Right.
not communicating well, or maybe not defining roles really well, and where those problems start to arise.
Yeah, and I put the study in the
chat.
But I do want to say that initially, after having coached teams for many years, 2.5 decades of coaching teams, that anything that Selena and I say is not a rule, it's not a law, it's more of a guideline, more of a recommendation, because there are teams out there with every kind of model I could have never dreamed of. Seriously, I've heard of models I'm like, what? And they are, the main thing is, do they work and are they profitable? And that main thing doesn't matter to me or Selena, but it matters to you, the person running the team. Obviously, there are a lot of people running teams where they feel like cash flow means profitability, and they are two different things completely. And I think that when people are saying, yeah, well, I wouldn't work for that split, well, that's a mindset issue, because it's not about what you would do or not do. You are the team leader. And when you are the team leader or the rainmaker, then rules apply to you that wouldn't necessarily apply to others. So it's about really building a team where profitability is king, so that the team will be sustainable into infinity, not one that has a life sentence on it, or a half-life where you know when it's going to end. I'm just not a fan of that. So thoughts on that, Selena?
Yeah, I think, it's so interesting to me, and there are so many mindsets around this, right? And I've been with different companies and different, even coaching different agents and different teams on what that first hire is supposed to be. Yeah. Right. And there are people who have different beliefs in it. Is it supposed to be the admin? Is it supposed to be a buyer's agent? And I don't think there's any right way. I think it really has to be what you feel is going to be the thing that gives you some sense of control back over your life, and whatever that is. I do have some people who truly, it is a buyer's agent that gives them that sense of relief immediately. And it's because they happen to already have such incredible systems in place that maybe the admin isn't really what they need, because they're already automated in that sense. Right. And in some places, it's an agent who has zero systems and is really terrible at paperwork. And it's just that, wow, we really need to get you somebody in here to kind of pick up the pieces and get all of that in place. So Sherry and Gary, give me some feedback from your perspective, especially, Gary, because Sherry, you said that's really going to be his wheelhouse. What do you feel like that looks like for you guys? Where are you in that realm right now? What would you say is your next step as business starts to pick up for you?
I don't know, because I'm still trying to figure out all our systems that we're doing, because I usually do the buyers and some of the sellers and stuff like that. So haven't done enough. We're getting into doing the teams, even though we've talked about it and we want to do it. I have not done enough into that to give a good reasoning of what, but the, how do I say it?
We need buyer's agents.
Yeah,
Okay.
That's more the bottom line is how I see our team developing is bringing on buyer's agents and Gary managing the buyer's agents and being focused on listings until the listing part gets too heavy for him, and then we'll bring on listing specialists, but that will only be, you know, after there's a few buyer's agents working in that arena.
Producing.
Yeah.
and I think that a lot of people think that there are, as I said before, rules and regulations around when you do what. I've coached teams where the first hire needed to just simply be a contract transaction coordinator,
Mhm.
which does not put money on your
Right.
what we call operating expenses. It adds money to your cost of sale because you're paying at close, but you don't have to have money to pay when you possibly are broke or just starting out in the business. You're only paying after you close, which means you have money. Then for some, the very first hire needed to be an admin, but for others, the very first hire needed to be a TC and then a buyer's agent, because now, okay, now I've got my paperwork on my transactions handled. I just need somebody to get those buyers out because I'm dying on a vine here and I can't see my kids at night because I'm out showing property all the time. So there's a lot of different ways to look at it. And Sherry and Gary, for your instance, you know, there are two of you. We've seen a lot of husband and wife couples where the husband might deal with listings and the wife with buyers, or vice versa. It really doesn't matter. That's why if you saw in the study that Selena was showing, the word roles and responsibilities keep showing up because it is the constant issue. In other words, not just do I have the right people on the bus, but do I have the right people on the bus in the right seats? And is putting this person in the role of a buyer's agent or, you know, or a lead buyer specialist, you know, does that all work out?
Mhm.
I got really lucky when my buyer team exceeded 4 people. I was like, gosh, I need help. They're taking all my time calling me with contract questions. So we promoted the one who never asked questions and always wrote a perfect offer and always got a lot of hers accepted. Her name was Cindy. And we said, okay, Cindy, you're going to be the lead buyer specialist, the LBS, and you will get a slightly higher commission on your closed deals, but you'll also get a small portion of money from each of the buyer deals for having helped them get into contract. And that has worked wonders for me. Cindy's so good at it, takes the job seriously. But I mean, I didn't just go, okay, you're it, Cindy. We went to lunch. We talked about the responsibilities. Is it something you think you can handle? Because, you know, she was retired and I thought she wanted to wind down, not have more responsibilities. I didn't think she was going to say yes to it, but she did. And really, so those are important different roles that come up as we move through the team building journey.
You know, whenever I have someone who starts to feel a little bit overwhelmed in one way or the other, I usually tell them, when you're starting to feel overwhelmed, I want you to keep a notepad next to wherever you work and start making a list of all of the things that when you start to do it, you think, God, I would rather pull my eyelashes out than do this. Like that's the list.
Yeah.
And that's what you start thinking about, that if you had help, that's the next hire. Right. And that's what you start doing. And it could be a buyer's agent, right? That's it. It's like, oh, I wish I didn't have to show houses today. Instead, I wish I was going to a listing appointment. Then that's my eyelashes list, you know, and that's where that starts. If it's, I wish I didn't have to put listings into the MLS or, you know, whatever that is, or order brochures, then that starts becoming more of a marketing person or whatever that is. But that's also the first thing that I make them, they take that list when they're done. And that's our training list once that person's hired. Because those are the things that are going to start alleviating your stress as well. So it sounds like it's a weird thing to do, but I'm like, that's the list. It's like, these are the things that are going to make you feel like you can breathe the moment that you get somebody in place for that. So that's kind of where that starts. It also helps you build the roles and responsibilities list right off the get-go. You're like, oh, I know exactly what this person's going to do because these are the things I know I want off my plate.
Yeah.
They're the things I don't enjoy doing every day. So that's another way to look at it.
Yeah, and I think as these calls proceed, we'll find people who have very little interest in talking about that day's subject, but then we'll have people going, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I quote unquote needed to hear today. And, you know, everything. And we're going to do this on a systematic basis so that you're learning as you grow, so to speak. So, yeah. I think I love this subject and I can talk about it for days because I've seen what works and I've seen what doesn't work, both in my own experience as a team and also as coaching other large teams. I'm trying to make this so that I'm looking right at you instead of up or down at you, but and I think that the concept of starting to let go, because what do most people want to hold on to? No, if I build a team, I'll make less money. And that's not true. You'll actually net more money and net more time and move towards sustainable leveraged future that you don't necessarily have right now, and I can remember my ex-wife was very, very frugal with the money. I remember leaving a blackjack table thinking, because my money had run out, and she had been sitting next to me. And as we're walking away, she goes, "Good job." And I go, "What do you mean good job?" I said, I lost everything. There was nothing left. She goes, "Oh, no. You did very well. You started with $100 and I have $200 here in my purse." I go, "Where did you get $200? She goes, "Well, I would just take your chips away and put them in my purse, and you would look down at your chips and just use what was in front of you." So she said, once I realized we were 100% up, then I just let you, have fun until you ran out of money. And so the lesson I learned from that, there's always going to be those people that are saying, okay, let's allocate, let's do this, let's do that. I'm not that person, right? So those are things that where you have people, it's about putting those right people in place. Like people tell me all the time, well, you tell your stories and man, it's so cool that your wife really knows how to handle finances. And I said, yeah, I got lucky. I married that person, but you don't have to marry the person. You can hire the person that does that for you. I just happened to marry that person. So, and I think, obviously I feel very blessed because the combination of Casey and Selena to me is unbeatable out there in the team world. So
I think we scare them sometimes.
yes. She's currently right now on a phone call with Jarek Robbins, believe it or not. That
Well,
bitch got pulled, doesn't she? Jeez, gets Jarek Robbins on Labor Day to talk to her.
she does have pull.
Yeah.
Sherry and Gary, tell me about, you mentioned buyer's agents and you think that's the next step. What are you thinking time frame for that? Are you thinking immediately? What's on the horizon for that?
That's a good question. I think that it's coming sooner rather than later. I'm still trying to figure out just exactly how that's going to work into the layout of this company. And I'm not sure about this call. Is this call brand specific or is it brand neutral?
You mean as far as company?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're specifically doing it for our EXP organization, but it's definitely shareable. Don't you think, Selena? I don't
think so.
anything that, the splits and caps at EXP may be different than elsewhere, but team building is team building,
Yeah.
Selena and I are friends with a lady, I think her, Sherry, called Christy Buck, and Christy's real estate company is called Infinity Real Estate. However, Infinity Real Estate is the brokerage for the Christy Buck team, but nobody at Infinity Real Estate isn't on the Christy Buck team. Like everybody is there so it's housing one team. And she considered at one point saying, well, maybe I should hire other agents that aren't on the Christy Buck team. And then she goes, no, then because that's when you turn back into a normal brokerage. Or administrative responsibilities and all this other stuff. So yes, I'm just plugging things in that are falling apart.
Well, I wondered because how we have set up ourselves here. Gary and I through the years have figured out, first it was he's going to do the listing side, I'm going to do the buyer side, and the two shall not meet. And then it morphed and it's just done this crazy back and forth thing. And now with EXP, it's more of I'm looking at the recruiting element and leaning into more recruiting, more coaching, Gary's more in the business, because, you know, to use Selena's analogy, I'd rather pull my eyelashes out than show houses. I hate it. So that's why I think buyer's agents are next up on the list. But it's kind of, you know, how's that hierarchy kind of fit with the two of us having two separate focuses, but yet we work with each other, if that makes sense. Like I have at least 1 hour a day dedicated to doing nothing but what Gary needs me to do. Like he gives me the list, and usually it's calling leads, but he gives me the list and says, this is what you're doing for my hour. Okay. And when I need him, you know, it goes the other way. So some of that stress relief of the stuff you don't like to do gets taken up.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
and I'm not sure if it's good to bring on a buyer's agent or if it's good to recruit under us and then just use a referral basis. I don't know what that looks like.
The answer is yes.
Yes.
Yeah. And good for you that you guys are noticing that you have an hour of things and Gary may have an hour of things to do to support you. But yeah, I mean, you are pretty darn good on the phones, Sherry. So, you know, you making lead Gary's behind you nodding.
Yep. I personally do not like talking on the phone. Ever since Yay Hi to a Grasshopper, I have not wanted to talk on the phone.
Yeah. Well, and Sherry, you're good at that, whether it's out of just sheer will or because you enjoy it. I think it's more the will than the enjoyment personally. But I think
It ebbs and flows.
yeah, it ebbs, yeah. But the tenacity that you have, and it's really not and or, it's and. In other words, yes, I'm going to attract agents and I'm going to attract agents that will be on my team. And usually the standard for the team will usually be higher than the standard to just recruit to the company. I know that's how it is with me, is that a lot of people I'm talking to from my local area say, oh, is there a spot on your team? And then I'm like, oh, well, man, this person now has to be hungry, humble, smart, and coachable, not one or two or three of the four, but all four. Like you don't get a choice. I need to continue to wake up in the morning and say, am I being hungry, humble, smart, and coachable? And then are the people that I'm surrounding myself on my real estate team all being those four things? And if you're hungry, humble, smart, and coachable, then you're not the know-it-all. Then you're the one willing to learn, and you're the one willing to shut up and listen. And those are the things that are tough to do. But having a buyer's agent, a lot of people say, oh, it's such a big responsibility. Why? Yes, if you have leads, you'd like to give it to that buyer's agent, and that buyer's agent needs to be put on an accountability track and to be, you know, doing lead generation at least an hour a day and doing their 61 points and things like that. So it does give you a managerial job in that sense, or a managerial activity, but it isn't expensive to do. It's just tedious. So
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a way to make it work for you, Sherry, in that respect, with what you're talking about with the model, right? And you could certainly do it both ways. And I actually coach clients who do it both ways. I have one in Virginia who's opted not to bring buyer's agents onto her team, but instead has a group of people within their brokerage that they just have an agreement and they refer out. And it's like, she's like, okay, she has two different ways she handles it. So in some cases, she has a showing assistant model, and we have an open door fee that it's $25 a door to the agents in that brokerage, that if someone's opening the door, she's paying $25 per door for that agent to just open the door. And then if the contract gets written, that my client writes the contract and everything. And then again, she's paying $25 per hour than if that other agent is going to the inspection or anything like that. So that's just handling kind of the actual out at the property work. Yeah. And that's working for her most of the time. And then there are people who just refer buyers out because they know that takes up the most time and they're just making 25% off of it. The difference is that if you are bringing a buyer's agent into the team, you're now keeping those leads. Now imagine from this perspective, if you're keeping those leads in-house, remember that a lead should be lasting a lifetime. Okay, so that's the advantage. You're keeping the lead for the lifetime as long as they're in. So if in a couple years they decide to sell and buy up, et cetera, you know, whatever that is, now you've got a lead for a lifetime versus someone you referred out and that becomes that person's lead for a lifetime. So you've got to look at all of those scenarios and see what works best for you.
Yeah, my concept at this point, and it's total concept, is to have someone within EXP to be in my area and then do a 50-50 kind of scenario with them, but the lead's mine. I'm mainly because, you know, I've been in the business for a while. I want to keep those instead of them just floating out there, and the person may or may not stay in real estate, and then that whole chunk of the database is gone and missing. So I do keep a hold, and I actually adopt client. When we list a house, the new buyer of that house, they're in my database. I adopt them because the likelihood that they're going to know their agent when they get ready to
Yeah.
sell.
Yeah, we call those orphans because they almost never get remembered by their own
Right.
their own agent.
Well, I adopt them immediately. So
Yeah, so there's a lot of ways to make it work for you guys. You just have to choose what's going to work best for you. I mean, obviously having the culture of productivity by bringing people in and having a team of people, and also having coverage. Let's say that you and Gary decide to go on vacation, and now you have people within your own team that can cover, and you feel confident and comfortable about that. There's also that benefit. You know, Rick, I mean, you love your team. You love the folks that you've got there, right? And it starts to become something bigger than just the people that you work with. But everybody's different. So, you know, somebody said this the other day, and I thought it was such a powerful statement. I'm not asking you to create goals that aren't your own, right? So always want you to just choose what works the best for you, and whatever that is, we just help you figure that out and what is going to be the most effective for you. Like my client in Virginia, when she said that to me, I was like, oh, I don't know if that's going to work. And yet it's working fantastically for her. And what works so well, and why it works so well, is the agents that are in her brokerage, especially those that are newbies, newly licensed, love it because it gets them the ability to go out and show homes and get exposure and see what that's like and to earn a little extra cash. They're earning $25 a door when they're not earning any commission in the beginning, and feel like, oh, now I'm learning how to make appointments. I'm learning how to do all of these things, and I'm learning to go to an inspection. I'm learning how to go to an appraisal, and they're like, oh, and I'm getting paid to do it. You know,
right.
They feel like that's a win. So they love the opportunity. And I was like, okay, this worked. It opened my eyes up to a new possibility. So, you know, we never know what'll work, but sometimes, you know, you learn something new in this business.
Yeah. And that's well said, Selena. I think the whole thing is that what I want to see happen on these calls is that the more we do what you just did, is express methods and what's the word that they use? Standards of excellence, or best practices.
Best practices.
The more that we offer up best practices, you know, the more people can come back and use these videos as a resource. And of course, Gary and Sherry, the teacher's pets, that helps.
Well, I think there's, again, like we said at the beginning, there's no right way.
Yeah.
Right. And, you know, there's differences that, I mean, Rick's been doing this for a long time. I've been doing this for a long time. You guys have been doing this for a long time. And we still learn every day new ways, and that people are doing things. And we're like, huh. You know, and I think, wow, why haven't we thought of that before now? Right.
Yeah.
I mean, who knew that we could sell real estate like we did at the beginning of COVID, the way that we did, right? And it was just truly incredible. And even now, just seeing these kind of newfangled ways of people doing things. And I think just the mindset on teams and the way that things have grown, and look at what's being done with virtual assistants now, and just all of the different ways and systematizing. And Rick, I have so much to talk to you about with regards to that. And like all of the different ways to grow teams now. It's changed so much,
Yeah.
you know, there's a lot to be said for that. So I think
Well,
it's pretty,
And if you think about how massive number of realtors had to change, you know, a method of operation, right? And, you know, we closed the world down on March 16th of 2020, and immediately we're told we weren't an essential service, right? And until May 4th, which so let's just say 2 months of not being given the title of essential service, we still considered ourselves essential while people were desperate to find a place to move into. And we were obviously breaking rules, but not putting people in danger. We were just breaking rules because the rules were like no showings. And we were like, fuck it, we're showing, you know, excuse my language, but we're showing. And if you look at team building that way and say, we've got to do what best serves our clients, but also it has to be a win-win. What we decide to do as team leaders has to serve the people that are on the team also, so that we're all safe and well taken care of and that we are looked out after. I couldn't, you know, I used to cherry pick until Gary Keller warned me against that. He goes, if you're cherry picking the lead, why would any buyer's agent want to stay on your team? He said, you're out showing all the $1 million and $750,000 buyers. This is back in 2001. He said, it looks like every once in a while you even take the $500,000 buyers. Why? Give them to your team so that they know Rick's committed to giving us the buyers team, the buyers leads. And I didn't see it that way. I saw it as, oh no, I have to give that level of service for $1 million buyer, right? And when I saw it from Gary's perspective, I thought, okay, that's definitely something that I needed to take into consideration. And now I get leads all the time that come directly to me. I want nothing to do with them. I just simply say, I don't write offers on my own listings. Let me connect you to my business partner. I don't say my buyer's agent, I say my business partner, but all of that is up to you. You get to decide what works for you. We just want to give you the guidelines such that you know this will work, this may not work, this may not lead to profitability, you know, things like that. So,
yeah.
Well, I think the way the pandemic came in here as well and created such a buyer's market with the buyer's agents being, you know, just about everybody was a buyer's agent, whether they wanted to be or not. I think that took the public's perception of teams and just shook it up and turned it upside down. Because before, you know, it was like, if I'm going to, well, me as an agent and I'm dealing with the team, I don't want to deal with the buyer's agent. I want to deal with the team lead, period. If I'm negotiating, I'm negotiating with the team lead. That's not the case anymore. Now it's a whole different respect for everybody on the team because of the way the models are done now, and the buyer's agents or the listing specialists aren't sub agents or, you know, less than. They are quite often more powerful than the team lead. So, but I think that the public's perception has also embraced that hugely, which now has allowed the whole thing to explode, and why it's working so much better than it did a decade ago when everybody was like, that's not coming to my place. I mean, I remember sitting at a team event and a broker telling me, I don't allow teams in my brokerage. I was like, then why are you here? He goes, I want to figure out what you guys are trying to do. And it was like, oh, okay. It wasn't my broker, but I mean, I sat there going, oh, he's going to get an awakening. And I bet you, if I could remember who it was, I bet you he would have a different song to sing, or he's out of the business right now.
It's been an interesting switch. You know, I think especially during COVID, when things were as crazy as they were, and you had to be able to go and see a home right away, right? Because it was gone in 12 minutes. You know, especially we had like a mass exodus from Manhattan up to the suburbs of New York. And they started realizing, oh, we're so grateful. And they started gravitating towards the teams because they needed a team that was large, that they knew that if they called, there was hopefully someone there that could take them to see it. And then it became that they were looking for someone that did have a team as well, because they needed to know that you had enough people to handle the transaction as well. And so what went from a year prior to, well, I only want to speak to the listing agent to ask a question about the listing was, ooh, do you have enough people in your office to handle all of the questions that we have to make sure that we can get what we need? So it was a very interesting switch from before we only want to speak to the listing agent if we have a question, where they would call our office and they would say, well, we want to speak to Mark to find out if there are hardwoods under the carpet. And I was like, Mark does not know if there are hardwoods. Mark doesn't remember anything about that house. You know? And I would say, you want to speak to our listing manager because she knows everything about the house. And always trying to explain that we hire these people to be specialists so that when you have a question, that person can answer everything. Yes, they know where the well is located. Yes, they know where the septic fields are. Yes, they know if there are hardwoods under the carpet. Yes, they know this. Yes, they know that. And we designed these specialties within the team so that when you call and ask a question, we don't have to say, oh, we'll call you back and maybe in 24 hours we'll get an answer. That then was a problem. Now they're like, oh, we love this. You know, and even with sellers, sometimes that was a problem, right? Where they're like, well, why would you, oh, we hired you to be our agent. Why do you have these extra people? And it was only after showing them a different level of client experience that they started to see, wow, it's so nice. We call the office, we get immediate service. We're not waiting until you're out of appointments for 6 or 7 hours before we get some sort of return message or phone call. And that's because for years, the model showed it was a single agent out there hitting the streets all day, right? And it wasn't until hours and hours and hours later that they were available to make a return phone call. So it's just, but it's been this long period of time for people to understand that that's what it's been transitioning into. And it's just a change in the client experience.
I think it fast forward after March of 2020. I think it just went on high overdrive. And now it's almost like they're looking at single agents as in, are you stupid? You know, and I don't mean that in a mean way, but
no.
It's the perception of the client now. They're used to having the team. They're used to being able to have that context. And now it's like, oh, you're going to wear all the hats? Huh,
right.
How are you going to do that?
So how are you going to find the time, right?
You better step it up, or if, you know, oh, I do have people on my team. Even if it's your TC, they're on your team.
They're on your team.
And I think that education process of the client and the team is vital, you know. And Selena, I'd want to talk to you, for instance, at one point when I had a bigger team in 2005, and there were 7 buyer's agents, which was the biggest I ever was before now. My buyer's agents became listing managers of each listing, meaning they had to go know the house very well.
Mm-hmm.
They had to know the seller. The seller knew that they were Rick and Coco's business partner, and that they would manage open houses and feedback and all of this. And all leads from that went to that one buyer's agent, all leads from that listing. And there was a rotating basis. And, you know, when I hear you talk about listing manager, a million things go through my head. But again, the reason I'm telling that story is look how many different options can be thought up to accomplish the tasks that need to be done on a daily basis without all of the burden ending up on the rainmaker or one or two people. So,
I love that idea.
Yeah.
That was, and so another concept of similar. So what we used to do, and we stopped it after a period of time, especially around COVID, was that was another client experience that we offered for our sellers, was pre the listing going live. Our buyer's agents would go and preview the listing. So we would have one afternoon, all 8 would go into the listing, walk through it, right? Couldn't bring any clients or anything, but they were required to go and preview the listing with the seller, take a look at it, get to know the home a little bit better so that they could speak to it from personal experience versus just the photos and whatnot when it went through. And our sellers freaking loved it because they were like, wow, your agents know that when they get a phone call or a lead that comes in, your agents know, oh, well, I've been in the home, right? So that was another thing that we did that kind of let our sellers know that that was the experience that we wanted, that if leads were coming in, that we could say, no, we've been there. We've been there already. So all of these things were all, that's the goal, guys, behind hiring team members. It is definitely to alleviate your load, your workload, and to create leverage in your life. But really, it's also about the client experience. Right now, they feel like, okay, my service just went, right? Systems and processes have gone into place that create that feeling that you're proactive, not reactive. I feel like that should just be like tattooed on my forehead. That's always my goal, is proactive versus reactive. What are we always doing every day so that everybody around us feels like we're always in front of the problem, not reacting to the problem,
Right.
And that's realistically what every hire should be, is like, how are we responding to something before it goes wrong, before something happens. So that's really what you're looking for with whether it's a buyer's agent. It's like, okay, great. Can I alleviate? How can I get more listings? Because now I'm not showing houses. We all know we make less money per hour schlepping a buyer around than we do with a seller. Okay, so how many more listings, Gary, can you get by not schlepping buyers?
Okay, I love your term, schlepping.
Sorry, schlepping. I love buyers, I really do.
Oh my God. People with the New York attitude called schlepping. It's Jewish term for hauling unwanted material.
This is what happens when you move a Southern girl north. Okay. But you lose a lot of money when you're handling buyers. So you have to look at that perspective. However, what usually happens is you tend to not use that time as wisely, right?
Yeah.
That's what happens. You're not
Right.
using it as wisely.
In May of 2001, 2002, I had never taken that many listings in 1 month, nor have I since. And I'll tell you why, because in February of 2002, when Gary urged me in a personal coaching session not to show any buyers, he said, here's what I want you to do instead. You're handing a buyer to your buyer's agent, and you would have been taking them out for how long? And I say typically 2.5 to 3 hours. He goes, okay, if you give this $750,000 buyer to June, your buyer's agent, June is out for 3 hours. In those 3 hours, you have to pretend you were out showing a property, but instead you're going to use those every minute of that time to lead generate for listings. He said, believe me, you won't keep doing it, but you got to do it in the beginning because that's what sets you up as a listing agent. So in May of 2002, I took 18 listings because in February and March and April, I did exactly what Gary said. And it like blew up in May where everybody's like, I'm ready. And for me, 18 listings with an average sale price at that time was $600,000. That's a lot of money.
Wow.
Funny thing is I lost more listings because I'd been to so many more listing appointments. I wasn't used to losing listings. Like I was at 100%. And then all of a sudden I was down at 80. But I think I lost 6 or 7 listings, which was devastating to me. But instead of looking, what I ended up looking at is I took 18 listings in 1 month. It's crazy.
That's amazing.
I've never done it since either, like I said, but it's still a matter of what did I devote that time to that I would have been with those. I'm like, well, that was a really good idea and it worked really well. So why continue it?
I love it when you say that.
Yeah. Anyway, but that's the idea, is that, that 300% price per hour wage cut that you take working for buyers versus sellers. So.
Well, I always think about it from the same mindset of it's the biggest mistake that most people make when they hire someone, is that the idea is that you're getting that time back, but we tend to not use that time wisely. It's the same way as when you get a massive raise and then you go and you spend instead of, you were obviously surviving on the lower income before, and then somehow you find a way to spend the money that you just got. So think about that as if if Gary, if you are able to save the time by not handling buyers, utilize the time to find ways to get more listings. So keep the time blocked that you would have blocked for showing buyers and say, what am I going to do to figure out another pillar to get listings, right? Just that's my second pillar or my third pillar or whatever that is, right? And fill that in on that time. So I think that's really, Gary, what I would say is to start that list that I'm going to pull my eyelashes out list. These are the things I'm doing right now that I wish I didn't have to do. And even if it is showing buyers or whatever that thing is, and start that list. And then that's going to start giving you ideas about, oh, if I could get this off my plate, it would make me really happy. And then if it starts leaning towards, yes, absolutely buyer's agent. But if you start seeing other things that are more administrative in nature or anything like that, keep the list going over time, guys, because as you do grow, that's going to start helping you develop like who that person is or what those roles look like and what those responsibilities look like. And you can kind of just keep that growing, and that helps you as you grow. And you're like, oh, now I've got this really nice, tidy list going of exactly what I would train them on, what their job description would be. I mean, you're already building out the job description right there. And then what I do is, if you're familiar with the sprint and the agile with Workman, then I throw it in there, and that's how I create the training. I just start throwing it in the sprint, and I'm like, okay, train them on this, train them on this, train them on that. Look at that. Yep. Everything I hate doing has now been completed, and go that route. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Love it.
I see somebody in marketing more than
marketing.
Marketing would probably be the one that would probably free us both up a lot.
And that's awesome. You know, there's another option. If you're not looking for someone full-time, get on something like Fiverr and see if there's someone out there that could help you sort of temporarily for, I mean, Fiverr, if you haven't used it before, or Upwork. I like Upwork a lot. I've been using the same designer for years, just because I liked what he did. And he built templates for me that are very interchangeable, but I liked his work. And so anytime I need something, he usually gets it back to me in one day. Very inexpensive. He's somewhere over in like Eastern Europe, and very, very inexpensive to get some work done for you and get it back pretty quickly. So those are options. Like if you don't want to hire someone full-time, but you just need some work done, those are thoughts too. There's a lot out there.
I've kind of been keeping my eye out for the college student kind of thing. You know, it's like somebody who wants to come in and do, you know, the postcards for just listed, just sold, blah, 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 and that kind of stuff, and creating some posts to go and, you know, Facebook and
get an intern. I love the interns. I can't remember if we talked about that previously. No, I sign up for the college intern program at any of the local community colleges or regular colleges, because they get college credit that doesn't cost you a penny. You just have to sign off that they're doing the work for you for however many hours a week. I've had so many interns. It's so great. And they can come in and do your social media posts, your flyers, all kinds of stuff. They've done some of my event management for me in the past. It's a great way to get them in, and they love it because it's getting them college credit.
That's from calling your local junior college? Or?
Yep, you can. Yeah, most of them have the little program. They sign up. The students sign up through their college programs. If they like, usually it's like a marketing, a business class. There's a couple of different programs that they have to sign up and get some sort of work credit as part of the program that they're in. And even the high school did it in Bedford, New York. We had a high school student who turned out to, I swear, he's like my long lost son. He ended up getting licensed and is still with the team. He's a great buyer's agent now. Yeah, so just get in touch with the colleges and say, hey, listen, I want to be on any of the programs that any of the college kids need work credit. Even some of them we did pay, but it was like $7 an hour, and they only needed like 10 hours a week. And they would just come in and do marketing work for us, or filing, you know, any number of things. And you interview, you don't have to take them, but you interview, see what their skill level is. Most of them though are mostly social media. Like that seems to be their skill set. But some of them though, like mine was like a dream whiz at Microsoft Excel. He was amazing. But so, just call them up and tell them what you're looking for, and they'll match up and they'll say, hey, we're going to send him over. They'll send you a resume and kind of a breakdown about what kind of classes he's in, or he or she. And then you interview, and they'll tell you how many hours that they have to come in. You have to sign something every week stating that they came in and what kind of work they did for you, and that's how they earn the credit. Yeah, it's a great program.
All right, I'll look into that.
Yeah, I'm all about free labor. I'm like, and they're always such great, energetic kids.
Yeah. And, we read stories out here in California, I guess, that interns are not allowed in California anymore.
What?
The state is, that everybody has to get paid, and volunteers are not allowed. Like, I don't know, it's really weird, but I'm trying to find that stuff out before I start interning anyone. But yeah, it's
Oh.
definitely much easier in other states. So
That's sad.
well, you can, yeah. So Selena, this is, I just looked up and I'm like, what? It's
I know.
earlier. The expectation would be, first, Gary and Sherry, do you feel like you got something out of today's call?
Absolutely.
Okay, good. So typically we would say to the people on the call, like, we would want ahas, thoughts, questions, and things, suggestions about upcoming calls and what we could add. We will be going sort of through the process of team building. We're certainly going to spend a lot of time on hiring very slowly and firing very quickly, things like that. We're going to talk about methods, designs. We're going to talk about how to go through a hiring process. Just all of the laborious, or call them tedious, things that we're going to do, such that excellence is the result, right? So that's what I want to say in anticipation of upcoming calls. We're doing these, what, the first and third Mondays?
First and third Mondays.
Yeah. Okay. And everybody will be getting an announcement. Is there anything I'm missing, dear Selena?
No, sir.
Okay. Do you have any closing comments for?
I think, it's just exactly what you said. It's going to be, I think we're going to do it based on some basic stuff, and then getting feedback from everyone about what they want. I think we'll definitely spend some time on DISC, don't you think, Rick? On DISC as well.
Without a doubt, that's probably going to be more than one episode. Too.
Yeah. And like things that can go wrong, things like performance improvement plans and what that looks like if things do go wrong, and like all of those hiccups, kind of what to expect. So
Yeah.
Stay tuned.
Yes. See all your pretty faces. Thank you, Gary. Even yours looks pretty darn good. So.
I don't know about that.
Yep, there's my 3 o'clock popping on. I've got a 3 o'clock coaching call, so I got a boogie.
See you, Matt. Everybody be good.
Bye, guys.
See
See you
ya.
later.